What's up there, Caitlin? Um, this is Dean Tuck, your English instructor. So I got your email, and of course you know that because I replied to it with a video that had no audio. So sorry to waste both of our time with that. I wanted to address your email directly and then talk you through a couple of things, and I hope it'll be helpful to you. I figured this would be easier than typing out a somewhat lengthy email. So um, first of all, I'm glad to hear that you're thinking of being an English major just because I don't get so many English majors, and it's nice to talk to one of us. And I'll tell you that a thing I like about you know English courses, especially after you get past composition like this one, naturally you're going to be electing to take things you're interested in. You'll be reading some literature, no doubt. Um, I just like the quiet space for contemplation and thinking through a text and the journey it takes to read through a piece of literature. And it's nice. It feels good to surround yourself with people like yourself who enjoy thinking about writing and um, talking about, art, literature. And anyway, if you stick with English, you'll find there are plenty of directions you could take your career, plenty of concentrations. I was surprised to see that, and when I declared English as a major as an undergrad, and different fields can different concentrations can prepare you for different fields and different careers. And that's certainly something I would suggest you looking into, depending on what you want to do for a career one day. I know this isn't what you're asking me to talk about, but as you're starting out here and at Wayne, no doubt you've taken ACA and you're thinking about the future. Anyway, if you ever want to talk about that sort of a thing, I'd be glad to. You say, I'm struggling with this course because research papers are very intimidating. I would have to agree with that. I'm glad I don't have to write one. Um, More detailed explanation on quoting sources directly, and you're concerned that you might accidentally plagiarize. I'm not sure if we are supposed to or not, even one second. About quoting, I am struggling with understanding what is okay and what is not. And yes, you're probably overthinking things. Um, there was one other thing that you said that I wanted to touch on. Oh, about accidentally plagiarizing. Yeah. So look, it's my kind of responsibility to ensure that you do not accidentally plagiarize, and that's what this course is really for. This research writing course that requires you to integrate sources. It's true that students will sometimes accidentally plagiarize in this class, and that is okay. You know what I mean? Because you have to try things out, and it's my job to point those moments out to you if you accidentally do so. Especially, but I want you to help allay your fears. Um, I want you to know that um, I'm very good after 14 or 15 years of teaching at being able to spot unintentional plagiarism versus intentional plagiarism. Okay, and when I observe anything that I believe would constitute plagiarism, you can bet I will draw that to your attention. Now, if you did that in homework, like this week's homework, working with the car source, like if you were to do that and it was intentional, I would still probably give you, if it had the appearance of unintentional plagiarism. This is more. I would probably still give you full credit, and I would explain to you that this could be seen this way. You needed to do a better job paraphrasing here, or why didn't you put quotes around this stuff that you blatantly copied? I'd say that's step one, Caitlin. If you copy something, you put quotes around it, and that's a quick indicator that, hey, I didn't plagiarize. Now, typically, you may, of course, you would want to give a signal phrase in there too, but what I tend to find is that people accidentally plagiarize not when they're quoting, but when they're paraphrasing, when they're attempting to put things in their own words, and they do a very careless job at that. They only change a word here or there, and they lean on the original far too much. So I don't think you're going to accidentally plagiarize when quoting. I think it's more likely to happen when you're summarizing or paraphrasing. But let's talk about quoting a little bit. This particular document here is like a foundational text for me in this first introductory unit that covers the basics. I love that this source begins by saying, okay, well, here are the reasons you would use a source in the first place. It's certainly worth reading in its entirety. And then they follow that up very quickly by saying, you don't have to quote every time. Use restraint. But one thing you're going to learn later this semester is that using direct quotes is more common in the humanities, which the English is in, and less common in the sciences. In the sciences, they absolutely prefer to summarize and paraphrase, and they might summarize an entire article in 2 sentences or even 1 sentence. And if they want to paraphrase someone's findings, or if they want to report someone's findings and the analysis that they gave, then they're going to paraphrase. But anyway, in the humanities, it is quite common to use the direct quotes. And here they say a primary document exception when a primary text is a key piece of evidence of the actual focus of your project. Careful analysis of quoted excerpts is required. So in an English class, naturally you're going to be quoting your poem or your novel or your short story. You're going to be quoting it frequently as you present it to the reader and then discuss. It's always present and discuss. But even if you weren't working with a literary text like that in a class like this one, it's the same kind of mode. It's always they say, I say. So you give a direct quote of something that you found useful in the source that you read, and you always follow it up with some analysis, with some explanation. And maybe you already know that. But I think what this is just trying to say is it's urging you to use some discretion about when you choose to quote as opposed to when you would paraphrase. So they say typically only quote when it's key statements by authorities, like let's say a scholar on some literary figure. If something is particularly well phrased or a conclusion that kind of brings things together that would help clarify something in your reader's mind. And then, of course, like passages where you would quote something because you're going to break it down very carefully after the fact. So where you need a word-by-word analysis. So here's what I say, Caitlin. Here's my take on the direct quotes. If when you're reading the Carr article, there's a particular line that you thought is particularly well put, like the thing says here, and what makes it well put in your mind is you found it illuminating. The point of cognition for me, it's like, oh, I finally understand it because he put it so well right then, and that makes sense to me. I think it would help this whole thing make sense to my reader, and so you capture it. That's kind of my philosophy with when I choose to direct quote. If I found it illuminating, I trust that it'll be illuminating for the reader, so I give it to them, but you never give it to them without following it up with some discussion, with some analysis. So, and then, of course, there are moments, let's just say, you wanted to bring something to the table, but if there would be any doubt in your reader's mind about this particular idea that you have, then all of a sudden you say, bam, Socrates said the same damn thing, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, this is an important page to me too, the smooth integration page, because it gives you a picture of how to integrate text within the confines of a single body paragraph. And as you can see, typically quoted material will come here, and there's a certain style with which you're supposed to proceed with integrating that particular quote or paraphrase or summary. All right, they give you a signal phrase. They use the article title and the authors I think giving an article title is overblown. Definitely give the authors. Typically tell us who the authors are, particularly if it's a popular source, so that you can build up the credibility or express to your reader why they are authoritative. And then there's your quote. Now, the rest of this is really golden, so do not skip this. Certainly read all of this. Now I want to come back to your email and make sure I've addressed your concern. Just give me just a second. So like I said, I don't think you're going to accidentally plagiarize when you're directly quoting, because it's just a matter of being forthcoming with your signal phrases before the quote, letting us know who said what, and of course your works cited. But in the little homework, I don't think I asked for a works cited citation, but pretty much every time you quote, you're going to tell me that Carr said it before the quote, and then if it's a paraphrase and it goes on, then you give me one of these guys with Carr's name in it, and that shows me where you're done paraphrasing this particular idea. Let me just run through the stuff that we're doing for homework real quick. So with direct quotes, just make sure you've glanced, or not glanced at, but you've read through this. You never give a direct quote without providing some context beforehand, setting it up within your paragraph. Typically you wouldn't begin quoting something until you at least have written the paragraph's topic sentence. But for the little exercises, I'm not so concerned about that. The main thing you need to know is quotes don't stand alone. There must be writing before and after always. That means you can't put a quote in a topic sentence, and you can't put a quote as the last sentence of a body paragraph, because if it's the last sentence, you didn't supply any analysis or discussion afterwards. So it's like shoving writing in your reader's face and saying, here, you figure it out. And you don't want to be that. You want to be helpful. And it doesn't make a lot of sense to use it in the first sentence of a body paragraph, because you need the first sentence to be a topic sentence that coordinates with your thesis. So for homework, I specify do not use quotations in the summary and paraphrase prompts. So for these little exercises, it's not, it is conceivable that someone might use a quote or a fragment quote along with their paraphrase, and that is perfectly okay. But I wanted everyone to get practice using those skills of summary, which is compression, and paraphrase, which is more of, let's just say, a scrambled up repurposing and rephrasing of an idea that loses less and captures more than summary. So just for the sake of this exercise, I do not want to use quotes here. And here I present to you 4 different types of quotes you can use, and you'll likely use all of them this semester. A full sentence quote, a block quote, a fragment quote, and an indirect quote, which is when you cite the source of a source. That can happen. And the skill that you use in all 4 of those is quite similar. But if you were to give a long block quote like this one, you'd want to format it properly. But there better be something more than a quick sentence follow-up to make sure that your reader understands what that's all about. One thing I find that students struggle with is finding the right things to quote. Oh yeah, by the way, these are some models I supplied to show you what it looks like, or what I'm looking for. For example, here's a demonstration of what I'm looking for those quote prompts. So, last word on quotes. I find that sometimes students will make the mistake of, first of all, not entirely reading the thing that they want to quote. But they have a thing to say in their paper, and they want to back it up, so they Google the very thing they said and find a quote that is almost identical, plop it in there. So it reads like this. Here is a sentence that I believe. According to Jacob Jacobs, here is a sentence that I believe. What this virtually means is, this is a sentence that I believe. So it's like you get triplicate form of the exact same thing. Well, who the heck needs that? Why is that helpful? It's just completely redundant, right? I see that Not super often, but anyway, you want to avoid redundancy at all costs. In the analysis, you offer something helpful, you build upon it, you develop it.